Welcome to See, Hear, Feel. I'm excited to be here today with Jonhan Ho, who goes by John. Jonhan Ho has an MD degree as well as an MS degree, and he is the director of the dermatopathology unit at the University of Pittsburgh. At that same institution, he trained in dermatopathology and completed a fellowship in pathology informatics. His undergraduate studies were at Youngstown State University with his medical degree from Northeast Ohio Medical University. He is the founder of Kiko, and I'll put in a link to Kiko in the show notes. It's a really wonderful site where doctors can connect with each other. And he is married with 4 children. So welcome to John.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Would you mind just sharing a little bit about who you are with me and the listeners?
Absolutely. Everybody always, I have 4 kids and they're all under the age of 12. And they get asked all the time, what they want to be when they grow up. And I never ask my kids that because they don't know anything about anything really. They haven't lived life. And I feel like a lot of adults ask that because it makes them feel better if, some kid wants to be a doctor or a lawyer, an engineer or whatever. And I think that's very biasing. I feel like if I were going to if I were going to ask my younger self, or if I'm going to tell my younger self, what are you going to be when you grow up? I would say what I really like to do is grow things. We're lucky in medicine. There's so many things to grow, and there's so many ways to pass things down to the next generation that make me happy. So I guess that's the story. Is I would tell my younger self that it doesn't have to be an occupation, a concrete occupation that you strive for.
You have a lot of passion to have created Kiko. To me, seems like a work of great passion. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Passion, we've talked about this around the scope, actually, this very word passion. Actually, the word passion, I think, I'm not sure exactly what language it comes from, but the origin is suffering, suffering for something that you love. So I think there's a bit of that in Kiko. But if I had to pull even further back from that, I would say I was afraid that when I died, I would feel, I just wanted to die happy. I didn't want to have any regrets. We're losing the ability to steer medicine, and that other people are steering medicine. I honestly feel like we're the best ones to steer it. So I didn't want to die knowing that I could have done something about it. So maybe death. Maybe death is why I started Kiko.
Emotions are just data, and they guide us if we are aware enough of what we're feeling to be able to listen to our own emotions and have them guide us. So it sounds like that's kind of what happened to you here. You recognized this, I guess, fear being a universal emotion, if we call it that, say fear of death and not having attempted to make a difference. And so being aware of that then motivated you to manage yourself and build what you've built so far.
Yeah, I don't think I could have done this when I was younger. I didn't have as much insight, into emotions and how they can affect your daily decisions. And, when to recognize that your emotions are taking over too far, whether it's excitement or anxiety or whatever. So it probably took me 25, 30 years to figure all this stuff out. So that's why I say I probably couldn't have done it when I was younger. It's always a dance every day. It's like, how do you incorporate your emotions to help drive you to, how do you understand yourself so that you know exactly what you want to accomplish? But at the same time, how do you make sure that you're not, running purely on emotion? Of course, that can be very dangerous too if you don't kind of pull back and kind of look at the evidence. So I feel like every day it's a little bit of a fine line that we try to walk.
That's what David Caruso says is part of emotional intelligence, that we're aware and we have that space, as you mentioned, that sort of ability to pull back, be aware, and manage what we're feeling before we react or respond in perhaps a way that we might regret, or perhaps in a way that we, eventually think was perfectly appropriate. And then also to know what emotions are actually truly useful to us, in the sense that fear was actually very useful to you in order to drive you to build something amazing. So even though we might think, oh, I don't want to be afraid, I think fear is bad, fear can actually be an important motivator and produce a lot of change.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that it's fear. I would say more urgency than anything else.
And I only say fear because there are 5 or maybe 6 so-called universal emotions that emotions researchers recognize.
Hmm.
And I'm very emotionally remedial, meaning I don't have good names for what I'm feeling. So I've tried to start with those 5 universal emotions to sort of pinpoint,
I
and they're
see.
anger, sadness, fear, disgust, and I'm forgetting the last one right now.
Happiness isn't in there.
Oh, yes, I forgot about happiness. What I still don't, I have to admit, I still don't quite understand what Kiko is, but I do get it so far. This I have finally, I'm starting to grasp that it does connect people, which is actually what ultimately David Caruso says, as an expert in emotional intelligence, that's what emotional intelligence is actually all about. It doesn't really matter what your emotional intelligence quotient or score is. It's really, can you connect with other people successfully? And because our emotions, as you were mentioning earlier, can derail us completely, either our own or what we think someone else is thinking, and we might be completely wrong about it, but it still derails us. Emotions are really the bedrock of how we do connect.
And I want to allow people to make new connections with people that care about the same things that you care about. I'm always sad at the end of the year, or even at the end of the month. We have all these med students come through. We have all these rotators who are not in pathology or in dermatology, and I'm like, oh, whatever happened to so and so, and I know they were working on this paper. I know they were hoping to get into this residency, or I know they wanted to get back close to their family in Nebraska. And there's no good way for me to find those things out. With doctors, we can get you into your tribe much, much, much faster. Mm-hmm. So we already know, you're a dermatologist, and we already know you're a dermatopathologist, and that's what you're most likely to be interested in. There might be health policy, and there might be ACGM training that you're also interested in. We have a lot to learn from Twitter, and one of them is to cut down the noise. And one of them, hey, let's get you to who you care about. When you talk about a tribe, you're talking about a culture. Every tribe has its own separate culture. We have this culture in medicine that's different from anything else. So nothing that's mass produced to everybody in the world could possibly capture our culture. And so that's what I feel like our advantage is we can learn from them, and we're only serving doctors.
Do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think you're doing a great thing. I think this will help you connect, and others connect to you that otherwise you might not never have connected with. So that makes me happy.
All right, awesome.